September 18th, 2023. The morning marine layer over Newport Beach was thick and obstinate, clinging to the opulent glass and steel mansions lining the cliffs of Pelican Hill. It was a day like any other in the exclusive enclave, where the hushed roar of the Pacific was the only sound that dared to disturb the peace. That peace was shattered by a single, piercing scream. A housekeeper, arriving for her Monday shift, found the body. Kinza Alamy, 21 years old, lay at the bottom of a stone staircase leading from the infinity pool to a private beach cove. Her dreams of becoming an architect, nurtured in the bustling streets of Casablanca and carried across an ocean, had ended here, broken against the cold, unforgiving California stone. To understand how she ended up there, one must go back 18 months, to a sunnier, more hopeful time. Kinza had arrived at LAX in the late winter of 2022, a single suitcase in hand and a scholarship acceptance letter to the University of California, Irvine, clutched like a holy text. She was the pride of her family, a brilliant, determined daughter who had mastered English by watching American films and had sketched buildings since she was a child. Her father, a respected mathematics professor, and her mother, a homemaker, had poured their life savings and their boundless hopes into her journey. The initial months were a whirlwind of dizzying freedom and profound loneliness. The sprawling, car-centric landscape of Orange County was a world away from the walkable, communal Medinas of her youth. She navigated the impersonal aisles of supermarkets, the complex bus schedules, and the subtle cultural codes of her American peers with a quiet grace. She made a few friends in her program, most notably Sophia, another international student from Brazil who understood the unique ache of being so far from home. They shared cheap takeout, complained about difficult professors, and dreamed of the futures they were building. Kinza was diligent, her grades were impeccable, and she even picked up a part-time job at a high-end catering company to send a little money home, a gesture of pride she insisted on. It was through that job that her carefully constructed world first began to tilt on its axis. The event was a fundraiser at a sprawling estate in Laguna Beach. Kinza was serving champagne, trying to remain invisible among the titans of tech and real estate. That's when she met Julian Croft. He was in his late 50s, with a tan that spoke of leisure and a smile that seemed to disarm the entire room. He wasn't loud or ostentatious like some of the other guests. He was calm, his voice a low, confident rumble. He didn't look at her like a servant. He looked at her like a person. He asked her name, where she was from, what she was studying. He listened, truly listened, with an intensity that made her feel like the only person in a room of hundreds. Julian Croft was, by any measure, a California millionaire. He had made his fortune in private equity, buying and selling companies with a Midas touch. He was divorced, with grown children who were distant figures in his life. He told Kinza he was tired of the superficiality of his world, that he craved something real. He saw, he said, a fire and an intellect in her that was rare and beautiful. Their first date was not to a noisy club, but to a quiet, Michelin-starred restaurant where the chef came to their table personally. He didn't overwhelm her with stories of his success. Instead, he drew out her own. He wanted to see her sketches, to hear about her architectural theories. For a young woman who often felt like an outsider, this focused attention was intoxicating. He was a mentor, a guide to this strange new world. The courtship was a masterclass in calculated generosity. He learned she was struggling to balance her demanding coursework with her job. Within a week, he had deposited enough money into her bank account to cover her tuition for the entire year. A gift, he'd said, waving off her protests. An investment in brilliance. You need to focus on your art, not on serving cocktails, Kinza, overwhelmed with gratitude, cried. She called her family in Casablanca, her voice trembling with joy. She told them she had met a wonderful, kind man, a benefactor who was helping her achieve her dreams. Her parents, hearing the relief in her voice, were happy for her. How could they not be? Next came the apartment. Her modest student housing was, in Julian's opinion, uninspiring and unsafe. He found her a sleek, furnished one-bedroom condo in a luxury building in Irvine, complete with a gym and a rooftop pool. He paid the lease a year in advance. The gilded cage was being constructed, but its bars were invisible, padded with cashmere and comfort. Kinza saw it only as a sanctuary, a testament to his love and care. She saw him as her savior. The first red flags were so subtle they were almost imperceptible, easily mistaken for the intense passion of a new romance. Her friendship with Sophia was the first casualty. Julian found her friend to be a negative influence. After Kinza and Sophia went out for a simple coffee, Julian would call, his tone laced with a cool disappointment. "I was worried, Kinza. You didn't answer my texts. I just want to know you're safe." He suggested that Sophia was jealous of their relationship, that she didn't understand the depth of their connection. Slowly, guilt began to curdle Kinza's interactions with her friend. She canceled plans, let texts go unanswered. Soon, the effortless friendship that had been her lifeline became a source of stress, and it withered. Then came the digital leash. He bought her a new laptop and a new phone, the latest models, of course. He set them up for her, and in the process, linked them to his own accounts. "So we can share calendars and photos easily," he explained. It was a gesture of intimacy, she thought. She didn't realize he was now monitoring her emails, her messages, her call logs. Her digital life was no longer her own. Communication with her family became more difficult. Julian was always there, his arm draped possessively around her as she spoke to them on video calls. He would smile and wave, the picture of a charming partner. But his presence was a muzzle. Kinza couldn't speak freely about the creeping unease she was beginning to feel. She couldn't tell them that Julian disliked her speaking Arabic on the phone. Calling it their secret language, he framed it as a desire for her to fully assimilate, to practice her English. She framed it as his all-consuming love. He just wanted every part of her. Her brother, Youssef, a sharp young man training to be an engineer, was the first to sense a change. "You sound different, Kinza," he told her once. "Like you are reading from a script." Kinza laughed it off, but the observation chilled her. The isolation became physical when Julian convinced her to move into his Newport Beach mansion. The condo, he argued, was still too far away. He missed her when she wasn't with him. The mansion was a fortress of modern architecture, all glass walls and stark white interiors, perched on the edge of the continent. It was beautiful, but it was also profoundly isolated, surrounded by high walls and accessible only through a guarded gate. She no longer had her own car. Julian's driver took her wherever she needed to go, which was almost exclusively to her classes at UCI and back. Her world, once expanding with promise, had shrunk to the confines of one man's property. He controlled her finances completely. The bank account he had set up for her was now a joint account, one he monitored daily. He gave her a credit card with no limit, but received an instant alert for every transaction. When she once bought a brand of coffee he didn't approve of, he questioned her for an hour about her wasteful habits. The man who had spent hundreds of thousands on her tuition and housing now interrogated her over a $10 purchase. It wasn't about the money, it was about the control. Every decision, no matter how small, had to be filtered through him. The point of no return came on a Tuesday afternoon in late August. Julian was in a series of heated meetings in his home office, the door uncharacteristically left ajar. Kinza, looking for a book in the library, overheard a fragment of a phone call. Julian's voice was not the smooth, reassuring tone she knew. It was hard, guttural, and cruel. "She's just another one," he spat into the phone. "They're all the same. Young, foreign, grateful. You find the ones with ambition but no resources. They're so desperate for the dream, they'll trade anything for it. Once she's served her purpose, we'll handle it the same way we handled the one from Ukraine." The words hit her with physical force. The one from Ukraine. Just another one. The entire artifice of their relationship, the love, the mentorship, the protection, crumbled in an instant. She wasn't his partner. She was a project, a possession, a commodity. The beautiful mansion was no longer a home. It was a prison. Every gift, every kind word, every lavish trip was now revealed for what it was, a tool of procurement. Panic, cold and absolute, seized her. She backed away from the door, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had to get out. But how? Her passport and visa documents were in the main safe, to which only Julian knew the combination. He had told her it was for safekeeping. Her phone was a tracking device. Her bank account was his. She was utterly, completely trapped. For 3 weeks, Kinza lived in a state of hypervigilant terror, playing the part of the devoted girlfriend while secretly plotting her escape. She managed to find her old, cheap smartphone she'd kept from her first days in America, its battery long dead. She secretly charged it using a hidden outlet in a guest bathroom, her hands shaking. She needed to contact someone, anyone. She thought of Sophia, but she had pushed her away so completely, she felt too ashamed to ask for help. Her only hope was her family. On the evening of September 17th, while Julian was showering, she locked herself in a walk-in closet and dialed her brother's number in Casablanca. It was the middle of the night in Morocco, but Youssef answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Kenza? Is everything all right?" "Youssef, listen to me," she whispered, her voice tight with fear. "You were right. Everything you said. It's not what it looks like. This man, he is not who he says he is. I am scared. I need help. Kenza, what is it? What's wrong?" he asked, now wide awake. "I can't talk. He has everything, my passport, my money. He watches me. I heard him. He was talking about other girls. Youssef, I think I am in terrible danger." Suddenly, she heard the sound of the shower stopping. Footsteps approached the bedroom. "I have to go," she hissed. "Don't call me back on this number. I'll find a way. Just know that I love you." The line went dead. That was the last time her family ever heard her voice. What happened in the next 12 hours would be pieced together by investigators over the course of a painstaking year. The official narrative, presented by Julian Croft's high-priced legal team, was one of tragic suicide. He claimed Kenza had been increasingly unstable and depressed, overwhelmed by the pressures of her studies. He told police they had a small argument that evening, and she had stormed off to be alone. He said he found her the next morning, having tragically fallen or jumped from the cliffside staircase. Detective Miles Harding of the Newport Beach Police Department was a 25-year veteran who had seen his share of tragedy among the city's wealthy. He had a finely tuned instinct for narratives that were just a little too neat. Croft's story was one of them. He was too calm, his grief too polished. The first crack in the story came from the autopsy report. The cause of death was blunt force trauma consistent with a fall, but there were other things. Faint bruising on her upper arms, shaped like fingerprints, suggested a struggle. More damningly, her toxicology report showed a high level of a potent sedative, one for which she had no prescription. It was a drug known to cause disorientation and drowsiness, making an accidental fall on a steep, winding staircase all too plausible. Harding's team began digging. They interviewed Sophia, who, racked with guilt, told them about Julian's isolating behavior and Kenza's gradual withdrawal. Then Youssef Alami contacted the U.S. Embassy in Morocco, recounting the desperate, terrified phone call from his sister. He provided the number she had called from, which police traced to a burner phone purchased for cash a month prior. The digital forensics team broke into Kenza's new phone, the one Julian had given her. In a deleted notes file, they found a litany of terror. Kenza had been secretly documenting Julian's controlling behavior for weeks. Dates, times, quotes. She wrote of his verbal abuse, his threats, his constant surveillance. The last entry, dated September 17th, read, "He knows I heard him. The way he looks at me has changed. I have to get out tonight." The final piece of the puzzle came from Julian Croft's own past. Harding's team ran his name through international databases. They found a pattern. 3 other young women, all international students or recent immigrants, had been in relationships with him over the past decade. One, a young artist from Ukraine, had returned home, abruptly, her friends never hearing from her again. Another, from Brazil, had been deported after a sudden visa issue that Croft had apparently tried to help with. All of them had been showered with gifts, isolated from their communities, and then had vanished from his life. Kenza was not the first. She was just the first to die. Investigators theorized that on the night of September 17th, Julian Croft discovered Kenza's secret phone and her plan to escape. The confrontation was not a small argument. It was the desperate struggle of a trapped animal and the cold rage of a predator losing control. They believe he drugged her wine at dinner, and later that night, as she was disoriented and trying to get away, he either pushed her down the stone steps or she fell as a direct result of his actions. He had waited until morning to call the authorities, giving him time to dispose of her old phone and craft his story. On October 25, 2023, Julian Croft was arrested and charged with the murder of Kenza Alami. The trial was a media sensation, a lurid tale of love, money, and deadly obsession. The prosecution laid out the meticulous pattern of predatory control, painting Croft not as a grieving lover, but as a calculating manipulator who saw vulnerable young women as disposable luxuries. Kinza's sketches were shown to the jury, evidence of a brilliant future stolen. Youssef Alamed testified, his voice breaking as he recounted his sister's final, terrified words. The defense argued that Kinza was an unstable gold digger who took her own life when she realized Croft was going to end their relationship. But the evidence, the sedative, the bruises, the secret phone, the testimony of a brother an ocean away, was overwhelming. After a 6-week trial, the jury found Julian Croft guilty of first-degree murder. Kinza Alami was buried in Casablanca. Her body finally returned to the family that had sent her off with such high hopes. Her story serves as a devastating cautionary tale. It speaks to the hidden vulnerabilities of those who travel to foreign lands in pursuit of their dreams, often without the safety net of family and community. Predators like Julian Croft thrive in the shadows of these systems, exploiting the potent combination of ambition and isolation. Kinza was not looking for a millionaire. She was looking for a foothold in a new world. Julian Croft offered her what he pretended was a hand up, but what was, in reality, the door to a cage from which there would be no escape. The California sun still shines on the cliffs of Newport Beach, but for one family, it will forever be dimmed by the memory of a brilliant light that was extinguished there far too soon.